Дорогі друзі, дуже дякуємо вам всім, що ви прийшли сьогодні в цей непростий для України день. Я думаю, мені не слід вам пояснювати, що ми тут сьогодні, щоб вшанувати пам'ять бійців, які загинули за нашу Україну в ніч з четверга на п'ятницю, коли в Оленівці, в виправній колонії, загинуло мінімум 53 українських військовополонених і мінімум 74 були поранені. Це ще один акт військового злочину і терористичного злочину терористичної держави Росії. Dear friends, dear Belgians, dear Europeans, we came out to commemorate our soldiers that were purposefully killed by Russia in Olenivka. On the night from Thursday to Friday, the missile targeted the correctional center where Ukrainian prisoners of war were staying. At least 53 soldiers died and at least 74 were injured. Just one day before, the video of Ukrainian soldier being tortured by Russian soldier, his pieces of body were cut just in front of the camera, with pleasure and with no guilt in eyes. This act of war crime in Olenivka, this act of terrorism, it was directed towards hiding Russian war crimes, hiding the facts of torturing and killing prisoners of war. They promised our soldiers, those from Azovstal and other heroic cities, will come back to their families, will be exchanged for Russian soldiers. But that never was meant to happen. It was a planned act of war crime and terrorism. There are just too many things they have to hide and silence so that the world doesn't know that they torture, rape, purposefully kill, execute, assassinate Ukrainians and other people who fight on our soil for freedom, for values, for sovereignty and independence. How long shall we watch it? How long shall we tolerate it and be silent about what is happening? How long shall we normalize it? Those soldiers, their average age was just a little bit more than 20 years. Imagine, I am myself 24 and I feel like my life has just started. And there were those younger than me. They were just kids. Kids that wanted to defend their country from a terrorist state that commits genocide against Ukrainians. I suggest we dedicate a minute of silence to all the victims in this bloody war of Russia against Ukraine.
плине кача по тисині. Мамко ж моя, не лай мені, мамко ж моя, не лай мені. Мамко ж моя, не лай мені, мамко ж моя, не лай мені. Ей, залаєш ми в злу годину, залаєш ми в злу годину. Сам не знаю, де погину, сам не знаю, де погину. Ей, погину я в чужім краю, погину я в чужім краю. Хто ж ми буде брати яму? Хто ж ми буде брати яму? Ей, виберуть ми чужі люди, виберуть ми чужі люди. Ці не жаль ти, мамко, буде, ці не жаль ти, мамко, буде. Ей, якби ж мені, синку, не жаль, якби ж мені, синку, не жаль. Ти ж на моїм серцю лежав, ти ж на моїм серцю лежав. Ей, плине кача по тисині, плине кача по тисині.
Я би дуже хотіла сьогодні прочитати їх імена. Як звали тих, кого вчора вбила Росія. I would like to let you know what were their names. The names of Ukrainian soldiers who were detained by Russia and brutally killed by Russia yesterday. Бабенко Олександр, Прокопенко Ігор, Хованських Сергій, Аганін Миколай, Бабіч Миколай, Барановський Миколай, Белий Владислав, Боздуган Андрій, Букарев Дмитро, Гамаюнов Ігор, Гринько Олександр, Горбатий Євген, Карнович Сергій, Істратов Константин, Павличенко Сергій, Пелехатий Миколай, Петренко Сергій, Раковський Сергій, Холодняк Ігор, Хомовський Богдан, Чесоєв Олександр, Шевелєв Віктор, Шоломієнко Владислав, Коняєв Андрій Леонідович, Круковський Дмитро, Новіков Олексій, Тищенко Дмитро, Парфенов Денис, Артеменко Станіслав, Байс Ярослав, Баринець Григорій, Бартош Єгор, Власишин Володимир, Волков Владислав, Гвоздинський Володимир, Гришкевич Богдан, Гук Петро, Денисов Анатолій, Зінчук Віталій, Зусін Сергій, Іванченко Дмитро, Карась Миколай, Кисілішин Олексій, Любов Олег, Марченко Дмитро, Пашнюк Пашев Євген, Сердечний Артем, Літвін Віталій.
Слава Україні!
Героям слава! Слава Україні! Героям слава! Слава Україні! Героям слава! Слава ЗСУ! Слава, слава, слава!
Герої не вмирають, допоки вони живуть у наших серцях.
Heroes never die until they live in our hearts. And there is one more important thing that we want to mention, to explain here. What happened did not just happen between Russia and Ukraine. The whole operation of evacuating Ukrainian soldiers of Azovstal was curated by United Nations and Red Cross. What did you, powerful international organizations, do to protect Ukrainian soldiers? to prevent their suffers from torturing, to prevent their planned assassination and execution. Where have you been? United Nations is that silence that unites you. What else has to happen for you to speak up? To speak up not just because the protocol obliges you, but to speak up bravely and come to actions. The very first action that you have to call for is acknowledgement of Russia as a terrorist state. There is enough evidence that this country has been financing terrorism in Ukraine, Afghanistan, Syria, Myanmar, Chechnya, Belarus. How many more have to be on the list? What else has to happen? Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist. Russia is a terrorist state. 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 Russia is a terrorist state.
Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state. Russia is a terrorist state. Russia.
And you know what is also important? That before they were trying to hide what they've done, but not today. Today, Russian embassy in Great Britain tweeted that they do support that Ukrainian soldiers were killed. But they said, this is not the way Ukrainian soldiers have to die. Not from a missile. The diplomatic embassy called to execute Ukrainian soldiers by hanging them. How the hell do we keep up with that? Tell me. They're saying it openly into our eyes. And we just surrender. Is that what we do? Terrorist state acknowledgement is not an empty word. This means cutting all political ties, all economic ties with Russia and all the supporting countries. This is the only way to stop this madness. Not with a dialogue, not with a dialogue with the terrorists, but only with decisive actions. And we are not even calling you to fight with us, shoulder by shoulder. We are just calling you to cut all the ties with a state that is blackmailing not only Ukraine, but you. And if you don't do enough, believe me, they will come for you.
Russia sends to Ukraine, to our home, the worst of the degenerates, the worst of terrorists. They are very cruel coming to our country, killing our people. Though our best of the best are dying. Every time we gather here for manifestations to commemorate victims, to commemorate soldiers, today, tomorrow, October, December 2025, how long? How long more is Belgium, is European Union, is NATO, is going to look what's happening in Ukraine. How many will we be left over when Russia finishes what it planned to finish? Ukrainian identity, Ukrainian statehood, Ukrainian people, Ukrainian children. These boys were children, they were not ready soldiers. They went to fight for the country, they had no other choice. They cannot stay and watch how civilians are dying. They must defend the country. What happened to women who opened yesterday, who opened today the list and saw that their sons, whom they wanted to see back home, for whom the guarantee was given by the United Nations, were killed. They saw the names. They were desperately hoping that their child is not on the list. These were someone's brothers, someone's husbands, someone's sons. How long will Ukrainians come out and say stand with us and cut all the ties with Russia? Recognize Russia terrorist state. Recognize the Wagner group, the worst of the worst. It's their fault. They are coming to us to kill us. They're most prepared people. They're most prepared Russian paid soldiers. They come to kill us. The silence is complicity. If your friends are silent, tell them about complicity. What's happened in Ukraine is the worst breach of humanitarian law. There is such thing as international humanitarian law. This is the law of the rules of the conducting of war. There are rules to conduct the war. You cannot kill the prisoners of war. You have to take care of them. You have to treat them. If they are ill, you have to treat them. There are rules. They not only not treat it, they kill them purposely. And they recognize that. They say, yes, they have to be hanged. Russia is a terrorist state. We will not be calmed down. We will not leave the streets empty till Belgium and European Union recognizes Russia as terrorist state. Russia is terrorist.
Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist. Russia is terrorist.
My dear friends, my name is Mark de Westmaker. I'm a Belgian senator, member of the federal parliament, and I wanted to come out here today to say a few words and to support you. And it is a message especially to my own compatriots here in Belgium, to the other Europeans. There should be no doubt in your mind what Russia did in Olenivka. They tortured prisoners of war during weeks. They tried to cover it up by murdering them. It is hard not to be emotional, and I see the pain in your eyes. Your pain is my pain and it's our pain. I feel more than pain. I feel anger. This morning I got an email from an anonymous compatriot, Belgian, a Flemish guy, who didn't want to say his name, but who wrote me that I should be ashamed. You know, I went to Bucha and Irpin beginning of April to see with my own eyes, just a few days after the liberation, what the Russians did there. I gave some interviews. These interviews are on YouTube and on websites and so on. And it is one of these interviews that he was reacting on. And he told me, you should be ashamed There was no massacre in Bucha. It was all staged. The timeline proves that it is a fake. You should be ashamed and you should stop supporting your Nazi Ukrainian friends. I don't have the habit to respond to anonymous emails, but I did reply. And this is what I replied. Because we know that Russia is lying time and time again. And I've been following the situation in Ukraine long enough to know it. I've been on the Russian blacklist since 2015 because they couldn't cope with the truth that we were telling that time. When I answered, it's fake, yeah, sure. Sure, the little green men in Crimea, they were not Russian soldiers. Flight MH17 was not shot down by a Russian book system. Sure, there was no involvement of Russian military or equipment in Donbass since 2014. Oh yes, Russia did not poison Navalny or Litvinenko, nor Skripal and others. Russia did not murder Boris Nemtsov. The reason why Russia keeps spreading its lies is because people like you keep on believing and spreading it. It knows it. And time by time, however, their lies are debunked by hard proof. Like Solzhenitsyn said, famous words, we know they're lying, they know they're lying, they know that we know they're lying, and we also know that they know that we know they are lying. But still, they lie. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, a long time ago, but still very true up to this day. And again, they are lying about what they did to Ukrainian prisoners of war. But as you said, as usual, they are very quick to admit what they did. And I have to read this Twitter of the Russian embassy in the UK in London. I will read it as it is there. Azov militants deserve execution, but death not by firing squad, but by hanging, because they are not real soldiers. They deserve a humiliating death. Words of Russian diplomats in London. So, I have a message for our new Minister of Foreign Affairs. You know, we have new minister since a couple of weeks. She was a journalist before. I was a journalist myself years ago. She also was a journalist. And last year, she was not a minister then, she was a journalist in summer. She went to Crimea during the Fleet Days. And she went there on invitation of the foundation of the daughter of President Putin. And she came home for the FDBF, that is the French-speaking public broadcast here. And she made a report, like a propaganda report for Russia. That is what it is. Up till now, she refuses to apologize or to admit that she was wrong. She went there illegally by plane from Moscow to Crimea, which is not allowed by Ukrainian law, but also not according to the directives of our own Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She's now Belgian Minister of Foreign Affairs. I have a message to her. You can make up. You can make up by apologizing, and you can make up by doing a couple of things. First of all, these diplomats, so-called diplomats, Russian diplomats, what are they still doing here in London or in other capitals in Europe? Make sure that you expel them. You should not have diplomatic relations with diplomats who call for openly for war crimes, for executing, for torturing prisoners of war. Make sure that you expel them. Secondly, if you really want to make up, make sure that you do any effort here in this country and with our European member states of the European Union to step up the sanctions and stop pushing the gas pedal and the brake pedal at the same time. Step up the sanctions, cut the ties with Russia economically, including gas and oil and also diamonds. Stop it. Stop this trade. And third, do more effort. Spend more to arm our Ukrainian friends to the teeth so that they can beat for once and forever these war criminals, these terrorists. That is what she should do, and that is what she should do, or I'm very sorry, but then she cannot be my Minister of Foreign Affairs, not in my name, and not in name of many Belgian compatriots who massively support Ukraine, who massively support the population and the military of Ukraine.
Thank you.
And last but not least, let her make sure that Belgium is a front runner in preparing the persecution at an international criminal court, a war criminal court of what happened. Because in 2022, they think they can still hide what they are doing. But we are 2022, they can no longer hide what they are doing. It will be exposed, we will find them, and we will persecute them, because that's what they deserve. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mark, and all the good friends of Ukraine here in Belgium and all over the world. Your brave words will stay in our hearts, and we don't feel lonely when we hear them. But we also would like to address some organizations that are meant to defend our human rights on this planet. Ukrainian soldiers in Azovstal were ready to give away their lives for freedom of Ukraine. They were ready to fight for Azovstal until the last breath, until the last minute of their life. But it was international community led by United Nations that was pushing their evacuation and their savior. Geneva Convention was supposed to protect them, their rights to leave. What is your plan now, dear United Nations? What is your plan to Russian war crimes? Is there anything you can answer to us? Because from what we see, Geneva Convention just doesn't work. UN conventions do not 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 work.
UN conventions do not work. Shame to UN! Shame to UN! Shame to UN! Shame to UN!
European Union and United States had promised to protect our soldiers, to help us out in the operation of evacuating Ukrainian soldiers. Where are your promises? What did you do? We cannot see the results. International organizations, from what we see, are putting the principles of neutrality over the basic principles of human rights, especially the human right to live. What is there more important than my right to live? Stop promising. Act now. 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 Stop promising. Act now.
Stop promising. Act now. Stop promising. Act now. Stop promising. Act now. Stop promising. Act now. Stop promising. Act now. Stop promising. Act now. Stop promising. Act now.
We created international organizations not to preserve the neutrality with terrorist states. We created them to protect us humans and our rights. We created them because we thought they would be just. But what we see, we heard promises for 6 months. Thousands of Ukrainians already died. Not in a just war, but in a war with a terrorist state committing war crimes and genocide against us. But you need time to clarify, to make sure that every piece of it was made. You don't have enough evidence. Don't have enough evidence to act, do you? How much more do you need? We wonder. Do we have to be exterminated as a nation for you to hear us? Is that what you are waiting for? All your attempts to conduct negotiations with a terrorist state, well, they actually don't even want it. They didn't work. Unfortunately, there is only force that works against the brutal force of aggressor. This is only military support that helps Ukraine to protect us and shield Europe and the whole peaceful democratic world that I doubt is ready to fight against Russia. Weapons for Ukraine! 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 Weapons for Ukraine!
Weapons for Ukraine! Weapons for Ukraine! Weapons for Ukraine! Weapons for Ukraine! Weapons for Ukraine! Weapons for Ukraine! Weapons for Ukraine! Weapons for Ukraine!
And you think probably that we are here unpeaceful, aggressive, demanding too much. But I call you, dear Europeans, please look into the eyes of your dear ones. Look into the eyes of your children, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, grandparents, and imagine in front of your eyes they are executed tortured, raped, so that you see and suffer from seeing it. Imagine. And I'm sorry, but then I will look at you. I will see what you're gonna do. I'm afraid you're gonna act the same. We have to unite our forces to fight against the evil. We, as fighters of light, unless united, the democratic world will not fight the authoritarian regime that terrorizes us with its acts and blackmailing. We have to counteract them getting into our decision-making offices, into our media, into our civil society, because they put their spice of influence into every piece of this life to make you believe their nonsense lies. Choose the side, the dark or the light one. What is that where you want to be? Acknowledge Russia as a terrorist state until its power grew to knock on your door and to not ask if you are ready for it or no. Acknowledge Russia a terrorist state. 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 Acknowledge Russia a terrorist state.
Acknowledge Russia a terrorist state. Acknowledge Russia a terrorist state. Acknowledge Russia a terrorist state. Acknowledge Russia a terrorist state. Acknowledge Russia a terrorist state.
How many times have we lost the opportunity to stop this terrorist country? How many times have we allowed them to enter a new sovereign state, and while people were crying there, we simply did not do enough? It's not that we say that we didn't do nothing. That wouldn't be truth. But we see from the reality that it was not enough to stop the aggressor. It was not enough to finally forget about suffering caused by Russian state. And this is a decisive moment when we finally can bring peace on European continent and even wider to the world. This is a decisive moment when we can fully block all the ties and relations with Russia and defeat them on the ground by the hands of Ukrainian soldiers and their international soldier comrades. With the hand of Ukrainian people who give away their lives for us to live here in peace. And don't worry that while the kid is at school, there's gonna be air alarm and it might be shelled, and we might never see our kids when we send them to school. Don't worry about mother having panic attacks because she cannot sleep, and even sleeping pills don't help her, because there are at least 5 fire alarms during the night. And believe me, from my experience, this sound is freaking out. Do not worry that tomorrow a friend to whom we sat by yesterday, you might never see him again, and saying bye each time like it is the last time. This is what they're fighting for. This is why they are keeping the escalation. This is why they are trying to protect the front line inside of Ukraine and not let it out to the borders. This is why they're fighting for. And the least we can do is just support them politically and economically and militarily. World, wake up! 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 Because just like Belgian mothers, just like European mothers, Ukrainian mothers did not give birth to their sons and daughters to die in a bloody war. They gave birth to their kids for them to build a beautiful, peaceful country, Ukraine. They gave birth to them for them to be the hope of our future. We want our heroes back home. But unfortunately, the only way we can assure they're back home safely is winning this war against the bloody aggressor.
I would like to ask, where is the Belgian media? Where are you when you were here in March, in February? Is the war finished for you? Why is this manifestation not in center of your attention? Why is the war crime that happens every day, that happened yesterday, not in center of your attention? I always believed that in democratic country, in the country of rule of law, in European country, the civil society, people go side by side with journalists and media. We are doing the action, you are showing the action to the government. Where are you to show this to the government? They don't hear us. The governments of European Union, of NATO, apparently do not hear what people are saying. And it's not only Ukrainians here, there are many, many European supporters. It's not only Ukrainians that are collecting funds for Ukrainian army. It is Europeans who are collecting funds for Ukrainian army. Governments, you have to just listen to your people. They know, their instinct shows what is right. They know that Ukraine has to defend itself with defensive, with offensive weapons. Weapons for Ukraine!
Weapons for Ukraine! Weapons for Ukraine!
For 8 years, we were telling the European governments what's right and what's wrong. We were speaking up. We were saying what they should do, what they should not do in relations with Russia. They did not listen. They appeased Russian Putin's, Kremlin's ambitions. They appeased imperialistic ambitions. Until today, they still cannot really recognize that it's imperialistic, that Ukraine did not do anything wrong. It's Russia wants to expand its borders, it's Russian mir, Ruski mir, to probably to Spain. And Spain and European Union will wake up once they are already there. Come on, we are here telling you, we are the ones, the most passionate today to defend European Union's borders, to defend NATO's borders. Where are you to help us defend yourself? Where are you? We are screaming, help us defend yourself! It's a pity that only Baltic countries, Poland, and the countries that are close to Ukraine and Russia understand the threat. Really pity. Because the threat hangs over this country as well. And the longer we wait, the bigger chances are that the threat is coming here. The danger is almost there. Just listen to your hearts, what is right, what is wrong, and give us what we ask for. Defend Ukraine today. Defend Ukraine today.
Defend Ukraine today! 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 Defend Ukraine today!
You know, last year around this time and a little bit before, me together with Oksana, where is Oksana? You know, Oksana, she always participates in our manifestation. She is the one who speaks the face of our manifestations. We organized a manifestation, or so to say, project, Stop Russian Brutality. We asked the members of European parliaments to participate, we asked politicians to participate. Mark participated. Stop Russian Brutality, it was Stop Russian Brutality. Today we ask Stop Russian Genocide in Ukraine. What's next? Which demand will be next? Why are we not heard? Russia is laughing in the faces of Europeans, laughing in the faces. Embassy in Britain is laughing in the faces of British, and they are permitted to do so. You know, since the full-scale war started, I cannot cry. I lost my feelings. I don't feel anything anymore. I feel just anger. I feel anger that we are not heard. And I believe that many activists feel the same. This is not right. This is not who we are. We wake up thrilling. We wake up. We want this all to be just film. But it is not. And we have to come here. This is our only way. Peaceful manifestation. Collecting funds. Helping Ukraine defend itself. Asking European governments who have much more power than us in terms of doing something practically, to do something practically. is a sign, you know. It's our, probably, I don't know which one, I already 5th time say that it's our 65th manifestation, it's probably 70th or more, since the full-scale war. Before the full-scale war, we also had several manifestations the same month in February, but we are getting more people, and it's good to see that you are coming, because maybe with our being massively here, we will be seen better. Bring your friends. Next time, bring your friends. They want to be here. Speak to them in French, in Dutch if you know the languages. Bring your host families if you are refugees. They want to be here. They probably do not know where to get the information. Just send it, share it, bring them here. They are Belgian citizens. Belgian government will have to listen to the Belgian citizens. Bring them here. And make sure that Russia is recognized as terrorist state. Russia is terrorist.
Russia is terrorist! 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 Russia is terrorist!
You know, maybe I don't understand the reality good enough, but according to my understanding, the terrorists have to be in prison. The terrorists do not have to sit against me on the diplomatic negotiations. This is Hague, where they have to be, and not the UN Security Council, and not the International Red Cross. Tell me, is it me who is weird? Or is it world who got crazy? You are calling us to negotiate with people who commit war crimes against us, who are breaching all the conventions, all the legislations. What am I supposed to say to them? What we Ukrainians must say them? I don't know. How will you make sure they will stick to what they promised? What kind of enforcement is there to enforce a country that commits genocide? From just this little to this big, from this tiny to that old Ukrainians. Kick Russia out of UN! 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 Kick Russia out of UN!
Keep Russia out of UN! Keep Russia out of UN! Keep Russia out of UN! Keep Russia out of UN! Keep Russia out of UN! Keep Russia out of UN! Keep Russia out of UN! Keep Russia out of UN! Keep Russia out of UN!
Around a month ago, more than 100 countries voted for the new head of International Red Cross on behalf of Russia. All evidence say this man is a close ally of Putin make sure that the humanitarian corridors are established, that humanitarian aid is delivered. How is he supposed to protect, through the means of International Red Cross, you and me? What is Russia doing in International Red Cross? Tell me. There is no place for such a country in there. Russia must be out of Red Cross. 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 Russia must be out of Red Cross.
Russia must be out of Red Cross. Russia must be out of Red Cross. Russia must be out of Red Cross. Russia must be out of Red Cross. Russia must be out of Red Cross. Russia must
Is Northern Korea in International Red Cross? Is Northern Korea in UN Security Council? Is there their diplomatic representation somewhere around here? Is there? I don't think so. We say we are afraid of Russian nuclear weapons. North Korea does have one as well. But for some reason there, we were sharp enough and clear enough on our position. What is stopping us from doing the same with Russia? They're blackmailing us and we are afraid. This is not how we protect ourselves. They said Ukraine is incapable of protecting itself because it doesn't have enough force. 3 days they gave us. 6 months ago. If Ukraine can fight, why can't the world fight as well? Why can't you believe that you can fight the aggressor back? Just start believing, because if you wait, it's gonna be too late. Tomorrow is 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 too late.
Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late. Tomorrow is too late.
Dear Belgians, dear European citizens, if we live in the democracy, it's not the government. We need to wait to make the decisions. This is us, European citizens, you, European citizens, who have to speak up about the needs and rights, to speak up to the governments, to the decision makers, to the officials, for them to represent our wills and needs. And I'm pretty sure your will is to stop the aggressor and protect yourself and your children, to make sure that this is you who decides your future, and not the aggressor, terroristic state that is willing to take away our right to decide what our future will be. Let's now just commemorate everyone who lost their houses, who lost their sense of home in this bloody, aggressive war.
Справа в тому, що в мене немає дому, і за правилом доброго тону, як за правилом доброго реміння, згадаю, з якого я плем'я, пригадаю, з якого міста, я чекаю на свої двері. Мене просто нема де сісти, написати свою промову. У мене немає дому, у мене немає дому, у мене немає дому. Люди такі сути за день, свої бетонні сути, а день шикуватись, суханути людям першу, другу сорту, а люди такі сотням в тандемі зі своїми відсотками, з третього, сьомого, герцями, сповнюють все сенсами. Справа в тому, що в мене немає дому. Тепер я ніколи нічого нікому. Тепер діля свою коло і більше. Але врешті я втім, я у мене був дім, я лишила його на людей, на котів, а пошила усіх, я не люблю котів. Хай люди такі сути за день, свої бетонні соти, а день шикуватись, суханути людям першу, другу сорту, а люди такі сотням в тандемі зі своїми відсотками, з третього, сьомого, герцями, сповнюють все сенсами.
Слава Україні! Слава Україні!
Three things. I will be extremely fast. Today we have kids playing there with bicycle. What all kids of Ukraine should be doing now is having a normal life, being worried about their homework, their friends, their moms, their dads. This is what is at risk. This is what Russia's state wants to eliminate. They want to eliminate their future. They want to eliminate their right to have a dream.
the right to have a future. And we will not allow that. Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia! Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia! Stop war!
Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia! Stop war! Stop Russia!
Second thing. To bomb a school is not an act of liberation. It's an act of terrorism. To drop a missile in a hospital is not an act of liberation. It's an act of terrorism. To kill hundreds of people in a commercial mall is not an act of liberation. It's an act of terrorism.
Там загубив себе, побачив аж до дна. Обійми мене, обійми мене, обійми, так легко і не пускай. Обійми мене, обійми мене, обійми, моя весна прийде нехай. Твоя душа складай зброю не. Невже так і вона так хоче теплих сліз? Обійми мене, обійми мене, обійми, так лагідно і не пускай. Обійми мене, обійми мене, обійми, моя весна прийде нехай.
Обійміть ті, хто з вами стоїть зараз поруч. Також я хочу дуже подякувати всім вам, хто за декілька годин прочитав наше оголошення і все-таки зміг прийти на цю важливу акцію сьогодні. Please hug everyone around you. This is very important, especially today. I also would like to thank each of you who read our announcement, who was able to come last minute to support each other and to remember our defenders. Ми сьогодні не одні. Така акція також в останній момент організована по всьому світу, по всій Європі. І ми дуже вдячні вам, що Брюссель, центр Європи, так само приймає в цьому участь. В Лондоні, в Канаді, в Австралії, в Америці, Нью-Йорк, Париж, Амстердам, Тбілісі, в багатьох містах світу в цей час проходять такі самі акції. Ми дуже вдячні, що ви відгукнулись. In all our cities in the world, in Europe, same actions are taking place today. It is crucial, very important for us to keep coming and to keep speaking so the world would not forget about the price that Ukraine pays for its freedom and for the freedom of the world. Зараз я би хотіла попросити вас стати спиною до центральної залізничної станції в Брюсселі для того, аби ми зробили фото та відео, для того, аби наші вдома в Україні бачили, що ми тут, в мирному Брюсселі, підтримуємо, пам'ятаємо та продовжуємо боротись. We would like to make a joint picture and a video in front of the Brussels Centrale station. Please join us. It is very important for our Ukrainians home to know that we keep fighting for them. Будь ласка, ставте дітей спершу, щоб їх було краще видно. Також плакати, які так, ті, хто повище ззаду, ті, хто понижче спереду, можна присісти. Плакати, які важливі з ключовими фразами, також, будь ласка, піднімайте, щоб всіх було видно.